Hi, friends. Welcome to our Tuesday night Dream Team chat. Tonight, we are on the second part of our diving into Scentsy's core values for the month. Okay. So it actually worked out pretty perfectly because we have 3 weeks of Dream Team chats and Scentsy has three core values. So last week, we talked about simplicity in your business, what the core value represents Scentsy wise, and then how we break that down into our business, the what, the why, how, all that good stuff. And so tonight we're moving on to generosity, which is probably my favorite of the three core values, because I think that there is a lot of value. I think there's just so much packed into being generous. And to me, this is the one that gives the most, but is like, it's almost like the least tangible of the three,
Mm,
you know?
yeah, I totally
It's
agree.
like not something like being generous is not really something that you can like grab onto, but it is a way of being and it's a way of doing your business. And so tonight we're going to talk about what it looks like to be generous, what being generous is like, and what Scensy's core value, what they look at it as. And so I hope you guys are ready. I'm super excited about this one. So we're going to start with what is being generous. Okay. And I'm sure that you probably like in your head can think of like what being generous is or the definition. I actually meant to look up the definition and I'm going to do that because I love this. Okay, so generous is showing a readiness to give more of something as money or time than is strictly necessary or expected,
Mm,
which I really love that.
mhm.
So showing a readiness to give more of something as money or time, which I would even take that part out because you can be generous with other things. I guess all this stuff would be time, but whatever. As money or time then is strictly necessary or expected. So I want you to
Mhm.
kind of like roll that around in your brain as we're going over all these things because that perfectly ties in. And I'm actually gonna like take some of that because that is exactly what I want to hit on when we're talking about being generous. Because
Mhm.
my definition, and like my church and my pastor likes to say is like being generous is giving out of the excess of what has been given to you. And so right here, it is strictly giving more of something than is strictly necessary or
Mhm.
expected. Um, and so my thought process is that when you are looking at just being generous in general, sometimes you don't feel like you have an excess of something, but there is a maybe not obligation, but there is a desire to want to give even out of the little that you have.
Mm.
Or, you might say, I don't have an excess of such and such. I don't have an excess of money. I don't have an excess of time. So what does it look like to be generous then? Right. But to me, it's more of even if I have a little bit to give, I'm going to give that little bit. Right. In the hopes that it produces something that is beneficial to that person, to that cause, whatever. Knowing that when you pour out blessings onto other people, it is given back to you, right? In some way, some form, not necessarily like dollar for dollar type mentality.
Mhm.
But I'm a firm believer that when you give out, you are blessed in return
Mhm.
in some way, right? And so I kind of want you guys to run with that. I don't think that there is a wrong way to define being generous. It really is just this attitude of like I'm going to give what I can when it's not necessary for me to give, when it's not expected of me to give. And so we're kind of going to dive into like what that actually tangibly looks like in your business, but I wanted to set the stage for just our thought processes and how we're defining it and just make sure that we're all there. And if you have a different definition or you feel differently about it, we'd love to hear it in the comments. Like I said, I don't think that there's a wrong way to view this necessarily. And Alex is going to kind of go into like a little bit closer of what like Scentsy or how Scentsy displays this, but I think it falls right in line with this definition. Okay. And so moving on, we're going to talk about the why and why we should be generous. And I kind of already touched on it in terms of like the one area which to me sometimes feels selfish to like focus on, but it is I believe this to be true, is that when you do give out of the excess or even the little that you have, when you are choosing to be generous to somebody, when you are choosing to give them more or do more than is of expected of you, then you will be blessed in return. And so that's maybe one reason why you do want to give, right? And I'm going to use the example of church and tithing, right? Me and my family choose to be generous with whatever God has given us because one, God's given it to us. And so we need to give it back to his kingdom because that's what he says. But also, I believe that he is going to do more with that money for our church, for the missionaries, for our family, whatever. That's going to produce more than what it would produce for me in my pocket, right? So is it selfish? Maybe, if you get down to the bottom of it, but the reality of it is that I'm being faithful and I'm doing that because it's good to be generous. Okay. It's never, there's like literally no situation where being generous is a negative thing, unless you're being generous with like hate,
Yeah.
like I
Yeah,
mean,
or like evil ulterior motives, I
yeah,
guess. But
that seems like
I don't think like we could focus on that. I don't
no,
think that's the
no,
majority at all.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. So,
Yeah.
there's no wrong way to be generous in my opinion, and so you can take that however you want, but that is one of the reasons why I like to be generous, is because I know that it's promised that you'll be blessed in return. But also being generous specifically like for our business, whether it's with your team or with your customers, that mentality of trying to give more than they expect, right? It's that idea of like under promising and over delivering type mentality, right? It's like being generous and being I can't think of the word, but like all of that, what that does is that it cultivates relationship and it grows connection, right? Because when somebody is generous to you in some way, right? When they went above and beyond and they did something that was totally unexpected and they gave you more than you deserved or more than you asked for, there's this feeling of like, I feel so thankful. There's so much gratitude and I feel connected to this person. And it deepens that connection. It deepens that relationship in ways that I don't think that any other act can do, right? Because that feeling of gratitude and your own personal heart being in a position of wanting to be generous, that's like so special. Like that is such a huge moment. And I know that I have never been generous to someone despite their response and regretted it, right? And so when you do that, it also not only is it building relationships, which to me like deepens the roots of your business, but it also adds value to your business in terms of like when people are when people are referring you or when people are talking about you as a Scentsy consultant or your business as a whole, wouldn't it be really wonderful for them to hold that value, you being generous, at like one of the top reasons why they're referring you, right? I know for us, like restaurants, when we're talking about restaurants, it's like always like a top tier compliment for it to be like, oh my gosh, yeah, and the portions are so generous, right? It's like the prices are really good for what you get. Like we love that, right? And so getting more than we expected for what we're giving is such a high value thing in society, but also like in a smaller sense in our business, that can mean so much because it looks drastically different in my opinion to not only other direct sell companies but also to other consultants, right? Not every consultant has an arrows out mentality. Not every consultant is in a generous type of situation or mindset or heart position. And so you really stand out when you hold this quality and yourself to a high standard of like, I'm going to give, no, I'm going to give a little bit more than what they expected, because it puts my business at deeper value than what they expected it to be. It's not just like a transactional, here's your Scentsy. Like I've had customers tell me that it was so unexpected that I put tissue paper in their bag and had like nice little paper bags with handles.
Mhm.
Like they literally thought I was just going to drop it at their doorstep in a grocery bag. And I'm like, that feels like that should be common sense. But I also know that not everybody does that, and that's okay. But it's that little bit of extra where it costed me pennies on the dollar to do, right? But it went above their expectations, and to them, that was generously given.
Mhm.
Okay. And so there's all that, right? There's the things, and Alex is going to go into more of like how you do that in your business. So the last point that I want to touch on here is in terms of like the Scentsy community, in terms of your business as a whole and how you run and operate your business as a Scentsy consultant, how you show up for your team, how you show up for the collective team. I want you to understand that we've said from day one, and we say it frequently, that like everything is figure outable, right?
Mhm.
Everything is a learned skill. Everything we can go and do research, we can go up and look resources, we can go on the workstation, we can go on YouTube, we can go on groups, we can go to the team page, like we can find the answers. And the reason for that, the reason that we can do that is because somebody else has generously given the information and put it out there for you to have,
Mhm.
right? For it to be at your fingertips. And so when you look at the Scentsy community, the team page, your sponsor, Scentsy as a company, like when you look at all of that, just business, like we're just looking here, everything that is out there is because somebody else put the work in before you,
Mhm.
put the resources together and made it accessible to you. And so when we take a couple steps back to what I said in terms of when you are given, when somebody is generous to you, you should pour out of that. That's the same mentality, right? Is you're being poured into by somebody else. And so now you have this information. So what are you going to do with it? Right? Are you a taker or are you a giver? Right? We can take. That's what the team page is there for, right? Take these ideas, use them in your business. But also, there's an expectation that when you do that, you'll turn around and give to your teammate and you'll give to the next person, or you'll do it and then you'll turn around and give us your experience with it,
Mhm.
right? And so that is a huge part of being generous in this community, is taking the information that you have, that you've found, that you've been given, and giving it to the next, or taking it and sharing your experience after you've used it. And that, like the definition was like money or time. And I know that that takes time, but there are a lot of things that you can be generous that has nothing to do with monetary value.
Mhm.
And to me, takes very little time.
Mhm.
Like I know time is valuable. Trust me, I get it. But like the time that it takes to talk about what you did today, how you are working, or you saw this idea that Alex posted last week and you implemented it and here's how it worked for you. Like that time compared to like, I'm sure how you're spending the rest of your day. Like if we were to break it down minute by minute, it takes you less than 2 minutes to make a
Mhm.
post, if that. So, but the value, right? So it's like, okay, if you want to equate your time to value, or it costs something, fine. But like this is part of it, is investing the time or investing the extra, knowing that it will be multiplied later on down the road,
Mhm.
right? So like me and Alex doing these dream team chats every Tuesday, most Tuesdays all year long, right? It's like it doesn't matter if there's 50 people here, it doesn't matter if there's 3 people here, we're still doing it, and we're still going to record it, and we're still going to put it on YouTube for the rest of the Scentsy community, but for the replay option for
Mhm.
our team, knowing that regardless of who shows up here tonight and who has eyes on it tonight, we're hoping that the value of it, us being generous in our time and showing up, and the resources and things that we've learned, will benefit long term later down the road,
Mhm.
right? So that's how you have to look at what you choose to be generous with, is that you're not necessarily going to see a return on investment with that extra bit of generosity that you're choosing to implement in this area or this area. Um, but it's the long-term faith that it will be used for good.
Mhm.
And so that's so important. And all of this generosity, like I said, it's not, I don't think everybody is necessarily built with it. I think that this is like a learned, it's not, to me, it's not a skill. To me, it's a heart position.
Mhm.
Because you have to choose. You have to choose to be generous. You have to choose, and you have to choose simplicity too, right? We can
Mhm.
choose to make things really complicated, or we can choose to make them really simple. And I think that we have a pool one way or the other sometimes.
Mhm.
Same with generosity. Sometimes we can feel really selfish, and sometimes we can feel really generous.
Mhm.
And so it's a heart position. And I think that we can be choosy about what areas we're generous in, but overall, I think it would bode really well for all of us to have a position of generosity and have that be just our natural slant for our
Mhm.
business, because it feeds many when you do that.
Mhm.
And it benefits you greatly in ways that you may not see right off the bat. We
Mhm.
talk a lot about like planting seeds and like coming back and watering them, and like things take time, and
Mhm.
there's season for everything, and like all that stuff. This is not a like overnight it's going to happen. It's a, okay, I'm going to choose to give more here, and it's the arrows out. And that's one of my favorite things that Orville talks about, is this arrows out mentality. It's how
Mhm.
can I do more for them? How can I do more for this person? How can I serve them?
Mhm.
And you can do that by being generous in certain areas, or in areas of your business, all areas in your business entirely, in your life,
Mhm.
right? This is not just a business thing. Of course, we're talking about Scentsy tonight, but like, I would hope that this would strike some kind of chord, um, where you can find other areas in your life to be
Mhm.
generous. Because, like I said, it's not going to negatively impact you. Um, so yeah, so Alex is going to talk about the how we do this in our business, and
Yeah.
so
Yeah. So good.
yeah,
Great job.
there we go.
Okay. Yes. I think being generous is such a asset to your business, both for you and the people receiving your generosity. Yeah, it just makes you feel good to be generous. It does. If you're struggling with that heart posture, just start and it will multiply from that,
Yeah.
because it feels good to be generous. And so, when talking about being generous in your business, I want you to break it into two sections: your customers and your team. And in fact, in a lot of areas in your business, you're needing to look at the team aspect of it and the customer aspect of it. And there are many ways that you can be generous with both your team and your customers. Okay. So as I am like listing off some ideas, I'll try to give you like some tangible business sides of it, but just know that you can be generous in a lot of different ways, as Bree mentioned, with all areas of your business, team, and your customers, and everywhere in between. So you can start, and I love this one because it is 100% free. It is from deep in your heart, and that is with like your words and sharing your gratitude with them. Okay, words are very, very powerful things. They mean a lot, they carry a lot of weight, and so using your words wisely and sharing gratitude with your team and with your customers goes a really long way. Okay, it helps build that connection. It helps your customers feel loved on and seen. Okay. And it makes your team feel loved on and seen. Okay. And some ways that you can do this is shouting out your teammates as they're reaching goals, right? Chatting with people one on one, connecting with them one on one, feeding your teammates or your customers some words of affirmation. Hype them up. If you see they're struggling on Facebook or something, just send them a message. Hey, I was thinking about you. I really love this about you. I think that you're amazing. Encourage them. That is a really beautiful way to show your generosity with your heart and with your time. Even taking a few minutes out of your day, like Bree said, doesn't have to take a long time. It can mean the world to people. And I'm sure you've had times in your life where someone said something to you, maybe went out of their way to say something to you, or they said something to you at right the exact moment you needed it. Okay. And that generosity of them being brave enough to say it, or going out of their way to talk to you, or being kind enough to talk to you, that made your day, right? I've had many moments where just the right thing was said at the right time, and their generosity to say what was on their mind changed my whole entire day, life, even in some moments, right? And so your words can be such a generous part of your everyday business flow. Okay. I want to really encourage you to become more generous with your words. And you'll also find that it comes back to you. I find a generosity in words comes back pretty quickly. Okay. And that just will hype you up. Okay. And then also with your gratitude. Okay. I like to end our dream team chats letting you guys know how thankful we are for you guys for your time. Okay. I let my customers know at least once a week, oftentimes many more times a week, how thankful I am for them. When I'm texting my customers in a regular follow up message, I say, I appreciate you so much, right? Sharing gratitude with your customers is a very generous thing to do with your time. And I want to really encourage you, and we talk about this all the time, sharing your gratitude with your customers. But that is a really generous act for you that doesn't cost you any money, and it's quite simple. And my guess is it is so truly deeply from your heart. And so that's a really easy way to do that. Okay. You can be generous with small acts of kindness. Okay. This is a really fun one. If gift giving is your love language, if helping people out is something that makes you feel good, this one is right up your alley. And this is a really sweet way to be generous, especially this time of year, but all times of year. Little acts of service feel really good to receive. And so you can be on the giving side of that and give that gift of gratitude with an act of kindness to someone. So something like adding a happy birthday bar to someone's order who just had a birthday, something as simple as dropping off someone's order who orders for you, from you, um, going out of your way to research and help your teammate find an answer. That is an act of gratitude that is so very valuable to them. Okay. It makes them feel seen, makes them feel heard and important. It's helping them out so then they can go on and do big, amazing things in their business. Okay. There are many, many, many small acts of kindness that you can do just in your Scentsy business, right? I would say packaging up your order really pretty makes it a small act of service, right?
Happy mail.
Happy mail,
Yeah.
right? Happy mail, samples. There are so many little things that you can be doing in your business to show gratitude for your customers, right? To show gratitude for your team and your Scentsy community. And so don't overthink it. Don't overthink it. If you're guessing, oh, this would be cool, they would like this, they probably would. Okay. And if it's within your budget and your resources to do it, go for it. If it's free, even better. There's so many free ways that you can be, that you can show generosity in your business that don't, yeah, there's so many ways that you can do it that don't include money at all. Most of it, I would say, includes your time.
Right.
Okay. And then there's ways that you can give back even more tangibly in your Scentsy business. Okay. And I want you guys to look at the way that Scentsy displays their generosity. Things like their charitable cause campaigns that we get every catalog season, their Rockathon that they host every year, raising money for what are they raising money for? Food banks? Is it?
I think they picked something different, don't
They
they?
might,
Yeah.
yeah. But the Rockathon, which is a fundraiser event, the charitable cause, what else do they do?
Well, every time that I think every time I've gone to Superstar Director Summit, we've always had like a task,
Like
a
a
give
give back.
back, a give back thing. So like we packaged up diapers one year. We went and did the Holocaust and did like a class with them. So it's hard to think of it all on the spot,
Yeah, but
but like everything that they do is everything that they do, I think, is with a heart of generosity. But even like breaking it down smaller,
yeah.
you have to look at like things that they do for us consultants.
Mhm.
That is like things that they don't have to do. Like when we talk about, you know, flash sales or discounts
Mhm.
or clearance restocks or like whatever, right? And we say that that's extra PRV. This is bonus PRV.
Yeah.
That's true. Scentsy doesn't have to do that. They're going above and beyond. And it may feel like, well, they're just whatever, but they don't have to do that.
Mhm.
And so,
Yeah.
looking at it from that lens,
Yeah, just and just the resources that are available to us, the trainings that are available to us,
the giveaway,
the
the
giveaways,
events,
yep, the
the
incentives.
incentives,
Scentsy is a
the
very
bonuses.
generous company with their time and their money, and
Yeah.
they display it really well. They walk it out for us to
Yeah.
be able to follow suit. And so I want you guys to look at Scentsy's generosity as a example for your business. And we can do things like that in our business too. And we do things like fundraisers and buddy drives and fragrance flower drives and all the amazing drives. And I know at World Tour they did like a give back project
Yeah.
where we brought in donations. And so
Mhm.
the and when a Cincy brother or sister has a family emergency, the
yeah.
way that our Cincy
We
community
rally, yeah.
rallies together. And so it's just a really beautiful space to be in if you want to come. It just feels so good to be able to contribute to a culture, a company, an organization that has given me so much,
Right.
and has been so generous to me. So to be able to give that back and kind of live in a Cincy world,
Right.
rubbing elbows with other generous people who are working their business and taking ideas and leaving ideas and cheering people on and getting cheered on. It just is a really
It's infectious.
it is. It's an
Yeah.
infectious, contagious, sweet space to be. And there have been times in our own organization, our True Life team, where it felt bustling and very generous and very fun. And then times where it felt a little more reserved and selfish, and then a little mix of it all. And so seeing it even evolve over time and grow and try new things and again change things up. It's been really cool. It's been
Yeah.
a cool process to see and then to kind of come back years later and look back at our business and the ways that we are implementing our core values or ways that we have fumbled on them a little bit and had
Right.
to kind of backtrack and get ourselves back on track. It's really sweet to be able to talk about this with you guys. And generosity, I think, is one that maybe people skirt over
Yeah.
a little bit
Yeah.
because maybe it's not as fun as simplicity and authenticity to talk about.
Or
But
they think it requires more.
right,
Yeah.
right. And it does. Being generous does require more of you, but again, trusting that you are going to be refueled
Mhm.
by your generosity. And again, maybe not an overnight or a tit for tat exact thing.
Yeah.
You just have to trust the process and the journey along the way. Hasn't
Right.
failed us yet.
Right.
I think that they are Cincy core values for a reason. And so if you just try to align your business the best you can with simplicity, authenticity, and generosity, you will be set.
Yeah. And I just want to add that, like, before we go into next week, and as you're mulling around like the simplicity thing and then this generosity on top of it, this is like a three-piece puzzle, and it's all supposed to fit together
Mhm.
in terms of like how it all works and functions. And so if you are tonight thinking of ways that you can be generous, but it feels like it's getting really complicated and overwhelming
Yeah.
for you,
So true.
then that's not good. Okay,
Mhm.
that's not what we're asking. What I'm thinking is that since he kind of lays it out what your role is as a consultant or as a leader, like it's pretty clear what your responsibilities are as a consultant, in my opinion. And if you need help finding that, let me know. But like it's pretty clear what our role is. Like we are not required to have a team page. We're not required to package up orders really pretty. We're not even required to collect orders and, deliver them
Or follow up
or pick
or
up or follow up. Like,
anything.
we're not required to do any of that, right? And so if you, like last week, we told you to look back at your systems and see, write down everything that you do and all that stuff. You can do that. Go back to that, do that, and see what you're doing in your business and see what other things that you're doing, like following up, whatever. And just look at it and ask yourself, is there just like an inch more that I can give in this area?
Mhm.
Right? How can I be generous with my
Something you're
customers?
already doing.
Something you're already doing,
Yeah.
right? So like if it's like packaging up your orders really nicely, but you could write thank you on a clamshell, right? And stick it on there. That's a piece of it,
Yep.
right? That's literally as simple as it is. If you're not writing thank you text messages to your customers after you get an order,
Yep.
literally that's just one little extra step that adds up. And so it's not about piling in all the things every time, all the time.
Mhm.
It's about just choosing to go the extra mile, but not that long because
Yeah.
Lord knows, but like go the extra mile in little ways and it adds up. Okay. So, but this is a three-piece puzzle that should fit really nicely together. And so one does not cancel out or contradict the other, right? So your being generous should not contradict you being simple in your
Mhm.
business. And you being authentic should not contradict you being generous.
Yep.
That should flow together. So just think about that as we go into next week's authenticity.